I sleepwalk almost nightly, and occasionally have very intense sleep paralysis episodes. This particular experience bothered me. I was lucid in the dream, so I was consciously analysing what was occurring. I was alone inside this house, and conjuring up different animals that would walk through the front door. It was fun. All kinds of small mammals were running around looking silly, and I was enjoying the euphoric, lucid feeling. Then, all of the animals suddenly ran from the house, and this awful fear overcame me. I knew something was behind me. I turned around, and it was this grotesque, diminutive, half-Indian child, half-old woman, just standing in the doorway, staring at me. It's hard to explain. When I made eye contact, I immediately went into sleep paralysis with intense vibrations, and I couldn't move. It had this tiny, unnatural smirk, like it knew every single thing about me, and it could easily harm me if it chose to. I had an overwhelming feeling it had invaded my dream and didn't belong there, and I felt extremely helpless. My eyes opened up to my actual room. I was still crushed by the sleep paralysis, and I slipped back into the dream, where I was laying on the floor of the empty house, and the thing was gone. The animals came back in, and I tried to get back into the zone of enjoying the dream, but I couldn't shake the fear of that odd thing. It ended up showing up again. The cycle of sleep paralysis repeated, and it bothered me even more the second time. The third time it happened, when I saw that thing, which was always standing in a doorway inside the empty house. Instead of rejecting the horror of it, I decided I wanted to face it dead on. So I just stared as deeply into its ugly eyes as I could. My perspective basically zoomed into its eyes, to the point where they filled my entire vision, and I was focusing on the pitch black of its pupils. The deadness of its eyes was extremely disconcerting, but only because it gave me the impression of intelligence. I felt only slightly more comfortable after staring into its eyes, because the previous alternative was just thinking, shit, don't look at me. Either way, I snapped out of it, and was able to open my eyes again and slowly regain the ability to move. I'm a grown man, and I'm not easily scared, ever. But for about a week, I couldn't stop thinking about this thing. The concept of it fucked me up to the point where I was unnerved when I was alone, or in the dark. I won't say it's inexplicable, but it still freaks me out, and I hate it when it happens. At times, when I'm stressed, I get absolutely chronic sleep paralysis. Basically, where you're still dreaming, but believe you're awake, and though your mind is ticking, your body hasn't fully woken up yet, so you're unable to move. You can also hallucinate that a tormentor is responsible for this temporary paralysis. Everyone has their own tormentors. It could be an imp, a vampire. Mine's the woman from The Grudge, or Samara from The Ring. Basically, a woman in a white dress moving very erratically, with long black hair covering her face. After what seems like a lifetime, you jolt back awake as your body breaks out of the paralysis. Most times you can just realize it was a dream and try to go back to sleep. It usually manifests itself into a real-world setting where I'm sleeping, so I feel like I'm laying down on my bed, and the ghost woman will appear from a wardrobe, or through my door, or at the foot of my bed, and start to make her way towards me. One time, around an important exam I was having, she came from under my bed. making that grating noise and maintaining eye contact the whole time. I basically thought I was frozen with fear. I couldn't move an inch. She continued really slowly making her way towards me, and when she was about an inch from my face, I snapped out of it. I thought I got out of bed to shake myself out of it. It felt so much like I was awake. But as I moved for the door, I started to get lower and lower to the ground until I was laying on it, and once again was unable to move. Now, while I lay on the floor, she emerged again from under the bed, coming straight towards me, except this time I felt like I was really awake. I woke up just before she got to me, and turned on every light, and went straight out onto the balcony to get cold, and make sure I really was awake this time. Didn't sleep for about 2 days after that. My partner suffers from sleep paralysis. We've been together for about 5 years, so I've heard all about it, and I can recognize it when it's happening to him. Normally, I'm asleep, of course, but I've woken up several times when it's happening, and I tell him. His eyes are open, and he breathes extremely heavily. Sometimes his head shakes or his jaw clenches. I can wake him up during these episodes by shaking him. He prefers if I do. The episodes sound terrifying, but I've personally never encountered sleep paralysis. Nothing paranormal either, until this encounter. I work in healthcare, and sometimes have to leave close to 4 AM. I'm kind of paranoid about oversleeping and missing work, and I think this stress causes me to frequently wake up in the middle of the night to check the time. One evening, I woke up and looked at the clock. It was close to 2 AM. Relieved I could sleep a little longer, I rolled back over. I could hear my partner breathing heavily on the outside of the bed. I was on the inside, and the dog was between us. At this point, I became aware of this low-voiced whispering. I had no idea what it was saying, but had lots of S-sounding words in it. I don't remember having any thoughts of what it might have been, besides thinking that my significant other was having an episode and trying to speak. I turn around to attempt to wake him up. The first thing I notice is that his eyes are closed, which was odd because they're normally open, at least when he's having an episode. Right after, I became immediately aware that something was standing over the top of him, on the other side of the bed. I wish I could properly describe the adrenaline rush that ran over me. I've never felt such a rush of fear like that in my entire life. It was an extremely tall, black shadow. It was a humanoid shape, but had much thinner, longer limbs. I looked up, and it was literally as tall as the ceiling, which is at least 10 feet. In fact, its head appeared to be hunched over because it was too tall for the room. Its eyes were large and radiated red, like a coil on an oven instead of a light. I sit up, and my first reaction was to wake my dog. He's a 90-pound pit, who, I should note, never barks. He was curled in between us, and I could feel him snap to attention. I honestly didn't want to take my eyes off the thing, so I'm not sure if he was staring at it or just in the general direction I was looking. I couldn't make out any features other than the eyes on the thing, but I could definitely tell it was staring at me. It slowly backs away, never turning around, and hunches down and out the open bedroom door. The whole experience was probably 10 to 15 seconds. I immediately shake awake my significant other. He tells me that he was having an episode in which the entire room was full of shadow people speaking to him, saying things like, "You're going to die." He said he could feel and see when I sat up. When I told him what I saw, I could tell he was absolutely terrified. What the hell was that? How could I have possibly seen something that my partner was experiencing during an episode of sleep paralysis? It's been a couple of months since that incident, and I haven't seen anything since. Anyone else experience something like this? I haven't experienced sleep paralysis in a long time. Honestly, I didn't think it would be a big deal, but last night it was. My partner and I were laying next to each other, and all of a sudden I start waking up. Our bodies were on our sides, facing each other. I went to cuddle him and realized I couldn't move. That's when the hallucination began. Behind my partner was an incredibly old woman. Her skin was wrinkled and translucent. I started to remind myself that she wasn't real, but as I began to, she started walking towards the bed. Now, our bed is a canopy up against the wall in a corner, and I'm on the inside, so essentially, even if I wanted to, I couldn't run. The panic started to set in when she started crawling over my partner, and his eyes shot open. I thought for a split second that he could see her too, but I guess in reality I started hyperventilating and woke him up. He started shouting my name, but I couldn't move, and she was over him and reaching for my throat. In one swift motion, my partner scooped me up and pulled me in, and started rocking me back and forth, saying it was okay. At that point, everything stopped, and the scream I had been holding in came out. Yeah, that was embarrassing to talk about. Don't worry, I wasn't dying, just seeing a dead woman trying to strangle me. The old hag, as she's usually referred to, is quite a common sighting for people who experience sleep paralysis. Maybe you've seen her too. My girlfriend suffers from pretty intense night terrors and sleep paralysis, and has done since she was a kid. Usually they're about a shadow man at the foot of her bed, or snakes in her room. It gets to the point where she scares herself so badly, she bruises herself while dreaming. She's had some small terrors before, and I'm usually able to calm her down quickly, convince her that nothing's really there, and she just goes back to sleep. We recently celebrated Valentine's Day by getting a hotel room, along with some pizza, some candy, and some beer, and just relaxed the night away. Everything went great, and when we finally go to sleep, I'm out like a light. 15 minutes after I pass out, she whispers quietly, "There's someone in the room with us. I can see him. He's right there." Now, this hotel wasn't exactly the nicest, and it wasn't in the best area, but I had felt safe. I assumed it was just another one of her night terrors. She then starts screaming that he's coming closer, so at this point I bolt awake, and it's much darker in the room than it was when I went to bed. I flick the light on, and no one's there, but my girlfriend is sobbing, curled up on the bed. With my heart racing, but still unconcerned, I checked the room to calm her down. I checked everywhere, including under the bed. When I went into the bathroom, my blood went cold. The window was open about 3 inches, when I specifically remembered closing it before I went to bed, and neither one of us had got up during the night. I didn't tell her about the window, cuddled her close, and didn't sleep at all for the rest of the night. I made sure that the knife I keep in my emergency kit was well within reach on the nightstand. Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. Sorry about the lack of videos this October. I've actually been pretty sick these past few days with a swollen throat, but today it seems to have gotten a bit better, so that's good I guess. But if you thought I sounded a little different in this video, that's probably why. It's kind of screwed up my schedule a bit for this month, but I'm gonna try and make up for the lost time, and pump out a couple more videos as quick as I can. We'll see what happens, we'll see. Anyway, for my throat's sake, I'm not gonna keep prattling on, so I'll just end it as always with you stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.